We live in a world where being busy has almost become synonymous with being successful. It's like busyness is a status symbol. If you ask someone in a professional setting how they're doing, they'll often try and convince you how busy they are, because that's success, right? But the problem with feeling busy is that often the busier we feel, the more we feel the need to multitask. And unfortunately, the more we multitask, the less productive we become. We simply waste time by being busy and convincing ourselves that we're productive when we multitask. So in today's video, we're going to have a closer look at what happens in our brain when we're busy and we try to multitask. Make sure you stick around till the end where I'll share some tips with you on how to improve your focus and increase your productivity. Even have a little challenge for you at the end that I hope you're up for. Let's start out by having a closer look at multitasking. So most of us love to think that we're great at multitasking. Try thinking back to your past week. How much have you been multitasking? Now you might think, well, of course I've been multitasking. I've got so many things on my plate. I'm so busy, I have to multitask. We check our emails and text messages while listening into a Zoom call, all while we're working on a spreadsheet. In this age of distraction that we live in, multitasking seems to be a superpower to have. The problem is, the human brain cannot multitask. Not even the female brain, it's a complete myth. None of us can multitask. If we feel like we're multitasking, what we're actually doing is switch tasking. That means instead of doing or concentrating on multiple things at once, we're actually jumping back and forth between different tasks. When we're switch tasking, we're not fully engaged or focused on any of the things that we're doing. There's this quote saying that multitasking is screwing up multiple things at the same time. And it's not far off. By trying to do multiple things at the same time, we end up not doing any of it well. So what typically happens is that we feel like we're really productive and we're doing really well when we can juggle multiple things at the same time. But what happens when we switch between tasks or get distracted, even if it's just for 30 seconds replying to a text message or checking our notifications, is that it takes up to 25 minutes to regain focus again. That means if we're constantly switching between tasks throughout the day, then we're never actually getting to that point of being fully focused on any task. Research shows that when we multitask, our productivity is lowered by 40% and mistakes are increased by 20%. So you see the paradox here. The busier we feel like we are, the more we try to multitask, reducing our actual productivity, leading us to feel even more busy. This keeps us in this loop of feeling very busy but not being very productive. It's the perfect recipe for stress and burnout. But apart from this illusion that we're more productive when we multitask and that we need to multitask because we're super busy, there's another reason why we multitask. You see, the brain loves switching between tasks. It feels good. But why is that? When we look at what's happening in our brain, we have billions of nerve cells and pathways connecting these nerve cells. In fact, we have about 80,000 kilometers or 50,000 miles worth of pathways in our brain. At the same time, we have about 20 different substances traveling through our brain throughout the day. These are what's responsible for making us feel love, happy, sad, angry, thirsty, hungry, and sleepy. One of these substances traveling through our brain is dopamine. Dopamine has been dubbed the happiness hormone. It makes us feel good. Now, dopamine is released in a lot of different situations, like when we're eating chocolate, eating fatty foods, buying nice new things, seeing a lot of stimuli, getting notifications, and when we're multitasking. You probably experienced a nice release of dopamine now because you saw so many different images on the screen. So what would you like now? Probably more pictures, right? You want me to keep up the pace because that dopamine feels good. This is used all the time in YouTube's video, on social media, in advertisement. Anything that aims to hold your attention will often have a lot of shifts in the content. It hooks us in because of the release of dopamine. Now, the exact same thing happens when we switch between tasks or when a notification pops up on our phone, on our laptop. Our brain loves it. With each novelty, each shift, our dopamine levels increase and we feel content and happy. The problem is that the dopamine level goes down quite quickly again, leaving us looking for that next hit of dopamine. We essentially become dopamine junkies where we need more and more shifts, novelties, and stimuli to get that dopamine high. So we multitask even more, creating that illusion that we're super productive and that we're doing really well because we feel good. So how addicted has your brain become to novelty, to multitasking? We'll try and find out at the end of the video in a little challenge I've got for you. So enough about all the downsides to multitasking. What's the alternative? Focus is the answer, and that sounds super simple, right? Focus is what happens when we concentrate and give all our attention to one thing at one time. In other words, when we single task. which is the opposite of multitasking. Now, as we just discussed, that can be really difficult to do because our brain is constantly chasing those dopamine highs, and because we're under the illusion that we're more productive when we multitask. But some people are starting to refer to focus as the new IQ, claiming that the ability to focus is more important for performance than IQ. This is to say that no matter how smart we are, how high our IQ is, if we're not able to focus and apply that to a task, then what good is it? Therefore, someone with a lower IQ but a high ability to focus might outperform someone with a high IQ but a low ability to focus. Luckily, our ability to focus can be trained and can improve over time. Let's have a look at some things we can do to start improving our focus to improve our productivity and performance. The first one shouldn't come as a surprise at this point. Start single tasking. By performing one task at a time, we can improve our focus and increase our productivity. Now, one of the first steps in order to be able to do this is to know what task we actually want to focus on. To get that clarity, it's really important to take the time to get your priorities straight. There's a couple of steps to doing this. First up, we need to set clear goals. Define what you want to accomplish within a specific period. Having clear goals helps you stay on track and gives you work purpose. Once we have clear goals, we can move on to the next step, which is prioritizing our tasks. We need to make sure that we prioritize the tasks that are most important in helping us achieve the overall goal that we just set. When you plan out your day, it can be a good idea to prioritize doing the hardest tasks first, so that you know you get those difficult projects, difficult tasks out of the way first thing in the morning. If you get these difficult or important tasks done, you can consider the day a success no matter what happens the rest of the day. There's an old saying that goes, when you're hunting elephants, don't get distracted by chasing rabbits. So if the elephants are our main priorities throughout the day, then the rabbits represent all the distractions that come up. Things like emails and phone calls and notifications that draw our attention to them. The elephants are often the bigger things that we need to focus on to progress towards achieving our goals, whereas the rabbits are unnecessary, easy distractions that don't necessarily help us achieve our goal in the end. So if we make sure that we start our day with an elephant, then we know that we're progressing towards achieving our overall goal. So in order for us to keep focus on those elephants, it also requires us to say no to the tasks that are not our priority at that given time. Saying no is a really difficult skill to learn, but it's super important to not get overwhelmed by those rabbits. Now that we know what we want to focus on, we can start setting boundaries for our work to help ourselves succeed in not getting distracted. This can be by eliminating both digital and physical distraction. Try turning your notifications off when you want to focus on a single task. That way you don't get distracted by the notifications, you don't get distracted to go and reply to an email or respond to a text. You can also aim to create a clutter-free, organized workspace to help minimize physical and visual distractions around you. Another way to manage your digital distractions is by managing your emails. Try blocking out 2 or 3 periods throughout the day where you tackle your inbox and respond to the emails that come in. It's obviously dependent on what you do, but in most cases, emails can wait just a few hours to get responded to. By dedicating time to respond to emails 2 or 3 times a day, you're making sure that it's never more than a few hours before people get a response from you. But at the same time, by not responding to an email as soon as it pops up on your screen, you're avoiding those distractions that are pulling you out of what you're trying to focus on. In a similar way, it can be a really good idea to block out your calendar. Blocking out your calendar can help keep you accountable for what you're doing in that time. Once you put it into your calendar, you're committed to do that task at that time. If you're part of a team or an organization where other people can also see your calendar, it also sends a clear message to them that you're not available for meetings or phone calls in that time. If you are part of a team, it can be a good idea to have a discussion about how you handle focus time. Have clear agreements of when it's okay to interrupt someone in their work, and when we're actually needing that focus time where we don't want to be interrupted. Now, the final point I've chosen to include here is to remember to unfocus. It might sound a bit strange that we need to unfocus to improve our focus, but the truth is that we cannot focus all the time. We need to make sure that we take breaks throughout the day to refresh our mind. At the same time, you also need to find out what recharges you. This can be things like mindfulness or meditation, it can be exercise, or it can be having a conversation with a colleague or a friend. It's important that you allow your brain that break from focusing so that you can refocus again when you get back to it. So onto the challenge that I promised you at the start of the video. I asked you how addicted your brain has become to multitasking. Now, a simple way of finding out is to see what happens when you try to not do it. So I challenge you to try out single tasking for at least 1 hour straight at some point in the next 48 hours. I wonder what will happen. Most likely one of two things. You'll either get into a state of flow where you feel deeply engaged in what you're doing and you find yourself being super productive, or you'll find the challenge of single tasking for 1 full hour straight extremely difficult. You may experience withdrawal symptoms and feel the urge to reach for your phone or check your emails while you're meant to be single tasking. Let me know how you got on with this challenge in the comments. Was it easy for you, or was it difficult for you to focus on a single task for a prolonged period of time? Regardless of how you did in the challenge, I really hope that you'll take some of these tips and try them out to start improving your focus to increase your productivity and your happiness. But it is important to be aware and realize that establishing new habits take time, and our brains don't like it. Don't be surprised if you find it difficult to introduce these new habits of single tasking and staying focused. The truth is that the brain is lazy and it likes to do things the way it usually does it. So anytime we try to break a habit or introduce something new into our lives, it's completely normal and natural that there's this subconscious rejection of the new thing we're trying to introduce. Even if we know logically that it's something that's better and healthier for us in the long run, our brain will have a natural resistance to it. Challenge yourself and stick with the habit of single tasking, and I promise that over time it will get easier. I upload new psychological insights, tips and tools on this channel every single week, and they're all aimed at spreading mental health awareness and helping you on the way to a better mental well-being. If you're not already, I'd love for you to subscribe so we can meet again. Thank you for watching this one. Take care and bye for now.